changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Friend Friday, and that means we're going to meet somebody very cool in the Chicken Soup for the Soul family. Today we're going to talk to Kathy Caprino, who wrote a story for our book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive. Kathy is a career success coach. She's a writer, a speaker. She's a leadership trainer. And what she specializes in is the advancement of women in business. She used to be part of corporate America. Then she was a trained marriage and family therapist. And now she is this career coach. And she's the author of Breakdown, Breakthrough. She's the founder of Elia Communications. And she is a leading contributor whose work you can see on Forbes.com, Huffington Post, and LinkedIn. And you can visit her website at kathycaprino.com. So, Kathy, welcome to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm so excited to be here.
I had run across Kathy years ago and had heard about her story. And so I had asked her to write it up for Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive. So why don't you share that story with everybody?
I would love to. Yes, so in the book, it's called From Breakdown to Breakthrough, and breakthrough is my favorite word in the English language, and you'll hear why. So briefly, I had an 18-year corporate career, and on the outside it was successful. On the inside it was not. It was bumpy. Bumpy. And when I hit 40, those bumps turned into true full-blown crises, from chronic infection of my trachea, which I had every 3 months for 4 years, to zero work-life balance. My kids were little then, and I just wasn't available for them. Toxicity all around me, a narcissistic boss. I faced discrimination. I faced harassment. So it kind of all really came to a head. And I knew I needed help. I knew I couldn't figure this out by myself, and I went to a career counselor, a therapist. I took assessment tests. None of it moved me out of that career.
You became a therapist, right, yourself?
I did. So, fast forward, I didn't do anything. I stayed in that hideous, career path, and then 1 month after moving to a bigger home, more financial responsibilities, was 9/11, and I was laid off in a way that really stripped me of my self-esteem, my confidence. It was torture, really. And I was sitting in my therapist's office crying, and he said, and I mentioned this in the book, I know this is, to you, the worst crisis you've ever faced, but from where I sit, it's the first moment you can choose who you want to be in the world. Now, who do you want to be? And from that question, I said, I want to help people. I became a therapist, marriage and family therapist, and trained in coaching, and I started giving talks around Connecticut about how do we thrive through chaos and change. And that began the first moment of what I call my calling, because women would line up after these talks, some crying, some shaking, saying, no one is talking about these challenges like you are. So I decided I really wanted to bring new solutions to the table, and I wrote a book, Breakdown, Breakthrough, after a year research study, and now 11 years later, this is what I do day in and day out. So I feel like I've turned my very deep mess into a message, and that brings so much meaning and purpose and joy into my life. So I'm here to help people figure out what they really want.
I love that phrase. You turned a mess into a message. And I thought it was interesting that after leaving corporate America in that disturbing way, you actually became a trained therapist, and you were a family therapist, but then you gave that up too. I mean, it was really 2 career changes in a row for you.
It really was. And, I am so grateful for that training. And I was a therapist for 5 years in total. And I mentioned in the story as well, the minute I knew it wasn't right for me, and I had inklings of it, but I had a client call and say, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to wrap my car around a tree right now. Gosh, my voice gets choked up even when I say it now. And I had a flash of, I so want to be of help, and I want to be a healer, but this was not the way I really wanted to use my talents.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have just put you right back into the old position of having the wrong kind of work-life balance, raising your kids and having the stress of clients threatening to wrap their cars around trees.
That's exactly right. And so I knew in that moment that the professional identity of therapy was not right for me, and I didn't know what I was right. So, anyone listening to this, and, I've worked with over 10,000 people in 10 years. I know that our challenges represent millions of people, and I focus on women, and we have particular challenges. Women are not men in skirts. We're different, I believe. When you don't know what you want to do, when things are going badly, when you know you're not a right fit, you can be so very, very confused. It's a very complicated thing to get yourself out of, I hate my work. Or, I did love therapy, but in many ways it was not the right fit for me.
I think we're all conflicted because when women are making decisions about their careers, they're always thinking about all the other obligations they have, whether it's husbands, partners, children, elderly parents, neighbors, volunteer work, whatever it is. We're never thinking just about how can I advance my career. We're always balancing it against other things.
You're right.
Now, I know that you have a lot of blogs that you do on Forbes.com where you really help people figure this stuff out. And you mentioned to me that you had one post that got more than 400,000 hits or reads, whatever they're called in that world. And you said it's something about 6 tips for how to figure out what you want to do with your life. And I think that would be the perfect thing to share with us.
Wonderful. So it's called a surefire plan to figure out what you really want. And you can just type that in or Caprino Forbes and you'll find it. So let me share quickly the 6 tips. First of all, when you're in a situation, and I believe this pertains to your personal life as well, we're a person when we show up to our professional life. The first thing is you have to understand you've kind of put yourself in a tiny box. You don't see it that way. You don't believe it. You believe that everything you did was what you had to do, but you don't understand that it was a choice, just like what you're saying, Amy, about all the other influences. So I call it, you have to hoist yourself out of the tiny box you trapped yourself in. And why are we in there? It's fear. It's fear in 2,000 different ways because we have limiting assumptions of what we're capable of. Oh, I need to earn this to be happy. My marriage or family won't survive me making a change. I'll be too old by the time I make this change, right? Or nothing will be better, or I'm not special. All of this is fear. And what we have to understand to be happy is we have to walk through the fear. It's not that fear will disappear. Fear never disappears. You just have to understand that you have to move forward through it and past it. How do we do that? You need help. You need outside help. Einstein, my favorite quote in the world is, we cannot solve a problem on the level of consciousness that created it. You can't do this by yourself, so you need either a coach or a mentor or a sponsor or a coaching buddy. And I do have a free assessment, Amy, I'd love to share. It's on my website, CathyCaprino.com. It's called my Career Path Assessment, Self-Assessment. It's 11 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me. And if I had answered those, I would not have been in my 18-year miserable career. So take that and you'll learn about why you've kept yourself in a limited way and how to break through. The second tip is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Look at what is working today and accentuate and leverage that, but let go of what is not. So often we just want to say, oh, I'm chucking the whole thing. I don't ever want to do marketing again. I want to be a therapist. But really, that's probably not the best way. You want to leverage what you love and keep going at that. Just let go of what you don't.
I think that's so true. Every career change I've ever made has always built on the base that I had built in the previous position. It's like building blocks, and soon you're standing on top of a foundation of all these different skills that you've picked up. Even if you did keep making dramatic changes in your career, you can bring those skills with you.
Oh, well, you just touched on tip 6, which is connect the dots. Nothing is wasted. Everything we've done, even though it looks like a terrible detour, everything can be used. And you somehow knew that. I never knew that. So that's wonderful. Love it. Tip number 3 is address your problems now before you make change. And nobody wants to hear this. When they hate their boss, when they hate their work, when they're exhausted and drained, they just want to run like I did, away from corporate to therapy. That isn't the best way. You need to address and improve your situation right this minute. You will then see how much more power you have and authority to change your life. And number 2, when you do get ready to leave or change directions, you're going to be energetically at a higher level to attract really what you want. So don't leap. I call it the pendulum effect. Flopping to the other side of the world. Don't do that. The fourth is no matter what you want to do, you need people to help you. And I see this with so many corporate professionals. If they've been in a job 8 years, 10 years, 5 years, they don't know people outside their company. They don't have a network. They don't have a supportive community. So you really have to do what's required. You have to interview regularly. You have to utilize LinkedIn. I'm such a fan. I have a lot of followers, 175,000 followers there on LinkedIn. It's a beautiful tool, and we all should be using it fully. But you want to bring yourself to market as well, interview regularly, and build those ambassadors and advocates who love you, who will open doors for you and say good words for you, about you. And the fifth is a personal brand. A lot of corporate professionals don't know about this. We have to see ourselves as a brand. We have to tell our story about who we are and what we've done in a very compelling way so that we can generate more opportunity for us. And I see it on LinkedIn. You know, I see so many LinkedIn profiles. I can tell in 3 minutes so much about people that they don't realize they're sharing. And some of it is there's a laziness to how they're showing up. I don't mean to sound harsh, but we have to do the work of mining what our personal brand is, who we have been from the beginning of time, and what we care about.
Oh, you're making me scared. I think I have a LinkedIn account, but I've never done anything with it.
Oh, girlfriend!
Nothing.
Get on there!
Nothing.
Really? Really? Okay. Well, you know, obviously you're tremendously successful. Chicken Soup for the Soul is amazing. But I feel like it's the big cocktail party in the sky. Like I have met some people who are 1,000 steps ahead of me, who have TED Talks of 20 million views. I just have met so many amazing people who then become friends. So I just so highly recommend it.
That's good advice. I don't even use a Facebook page either. All I use is Twitter. I'm just so busy. I feel if I start doing those other things, they're going to take too much of my time.
And that's what most of us say. I remember when I had to start doing Twitter for my business, I thought, really, how am I going to fit this in? I adore social media, and I do think it opens doors that traditional avenues don't. So, and you know, you can automate some of it, you can delegate a little bit of it, but I think if we really want to get out there in a big way and make a large impact, social media is just amazing. So maybe you can spend 10 minutes a day on it and see how that goes.
Maybe.
Maybe. And the sixth tip is what you touched on. Let's connect all the dots. Marry up everything you've ever been. But make sure you always, I say this, do what you need to stay afloat, but always plant the seeds for your future self, because your future will arrive. And if you haven't invested and honored who you really want to be, you're not going to get there.
Well, I can see why we published your story in Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive, because that book really had two themes. One was a big, important theme, which was if you're not thriving in your life, it's time to take care of that. Mm-hmm. And your story, Kathy, really dealt with that, the people who were reading that book for the big picture. Yeah. And then we also in that book addressed the smaller theme, and I had a podcast about this a few days ago that I called Use the Guest Soap. And that was just taking those little bits of time to thrive and treat yourself better. So it's been great catching up with you today. I think I will implement some of your advice.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for having me. So great. I love everything you're doing. It's so inspiring.
Well, thanks. And I'm very proud of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive. And if you want more tips from it, please go to our website, chickensoup.com. It's really been a pleasure having Kathy here today. She is the perfect representative of the Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive book. I'm Amy Newmark, and thank you for listening to Kathy and me today. And next time we get together, we're going to talk about the power of no, which I'm sure is important to Kathy. And we're going to learn how you can say no to the things that don't matter so you can say yes to the things that do.